The conflict in Ukraine crossed the 100-day mark last week, and with it came growing concerns of a global food crisis. Most of the blame is being directed at Russia, which has been accused of blockading Ukrainian ports. World leaders are pressuring Moscow to allow safe passage for grain exports many countries depend on. Since the conflict broke out back in late February, Türkiye has played a key role as a mediator between Kiev and Moscow. That latest effort came as Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov was in Ankara to discuss ways to facilitate the safe crossing through the Black Sea. Turkiye offered to escort Ukrainian ships through a secure corridor, a proposal welcomed by both Moscow and Kiev. But Lavrov said Russia wasn't to blame for the grain crisis.
The Ukrainians are holding these ships and people hostage there. Our Navy, our Black Sea Fleet, are constantly opening human corridors there. Westerners are trying to portray this as a disaster. However, the share of Ukrainian products in the market is only 1%. This does not lead to a food crisis.
A Kremlin spokesperson also called on Ukraine to clear mines along its coast in order for exports to resume. For his part, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Russia of blackmailing the world with famine with its continued blockade. And to discuss what was covered during their meeting, I'm joined by Talha Köse from Istanbul. He is an associate professor at Ibn Haldun University, and Russian political analyst Ivan Starodoubtsev, who joins us from Moscow. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. Talha, Turkish and Russian foreign ministers on Wednesday held a frank press conference after their talks on the Ukraine crisis, global food security, and Turkey's possible operation to Syria. But what has come out of that? What has been achieved?
I think it's an important opportunity for Russian foreign minister to contact with world public and demonstrate and show their views about this food crisis, because one of the consequences of this ongoing war is a possible food crisis. We know that more than 30 countries are dependent on the imports from Russia and Ukraine, and some UN agencies has declared that there may be a food crisis as a consequence of this ongoing blockage of Ukrainian grain tankers in the Black Sea. So one issue is definitely related to this food crisis, the preventing food crisis, and Turkey offered an opportunity to address this. The second and more important issue for Turkey is the planned Syria operation, cross-border operation, which would include Tel Rifat and Manbij, and coordinating these efforts with the Russian side, since they have military presence in these areas. And thirdly, definitely is also updating the world and updating international public about the status of mediation of efforts of Turkey. And so far, we have seen that those efforts have been stalled due to ongoing escalation.
So do you believe that there is any concrete outcome of this meeting, or just talking?
I think there's a plan for overcoming the food crisis. And in terms of the Syria operation, I think Turkish and Russian sides came to closer, because we have heard from different agencies, from Ministry of Foreign Affairs from Russia and also from Kremlin. So I think the parties came to a closer position, which is necessary for the, especially for the security of the troops, Turkish troops, and Syrian National Army.
So, Ivan, is there still a will between Russia and Ukraine to return to negotiations table? And is Turkey still effective in this regard? What do you think?
I think Russia is quite disappointed about Ukrainian approach to our peace talking format in Istanbul. You know, there is a big disappointment, and Russian foreign minister directly said that just Zelensky proposes to Putin to meet in order just to talk. Although our proposals were submitted to them, and there was a kind of a preliminary understanding that we can come to a sort of a result, but after 2 or 3 days after Istanbul meeting, those agreements were cancelled by Ukrainian side, and there is strong belief that actually Zelensky doesn't act independently from the West, so it is a Western effect. And as we say in Russia, it looks like West would like to make a war until the last Ukrainian. So there is a big disappointment about that, and there is actually no any sign from the Russian side that Russia would like somehow to accelerate the issue. But another issue, of course, this global crisis, food crisis, this is another story. And here Russia is ready to support Turkish mediation role.
So this food shortage, or as for the grain shortages, which is very crucial, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov said that the share of Ukrainian grain in international markets is just 1%. We know that that's not the case when we look at the figures before the Ukrainian crisis began. What's the reason behind Lavrov's statement?
I think Russia also wants to emphasize that they are also an important player in this food issue, both exports of grain as well as fertilizer, agricultural production. And we know that Ukraine is much significant player in this. I think what Russian side tried to emphasize is that it is the Ukrainian side that's preventing, and they are trying to expand this issue to make more pressure on Russia. And also, they also emphasize that Russia is also willing to cooperate in this issue, and they want to also export their agricultural products in this matter. So I think it's tied to the position that, yes, I mean, Ukraine wants to export their grains and agricultural production, but Russia is also interested to do the same thing, and they want to benefit from the export opportunities in a time where there is a need for food exports. I think they want to tie this issue together as a holistic. So if you want to resolve this food crisis, I think it's also reasonable to also include Russia to the equation. That's probably their message.
So, Ivan, I think you would like to comment on that. What would you like to say?
Yes, actually, Russian minister said very much clear that Russia doesn't consider this issue as a global issue, but there is some words which were not pronounced. I believe that still it might be issue for certain countries who imports the wheat from Ukrainian side, and Russia here definitely doesn't want to be complained about preventing supply of Ukrainian wheat to the foreign markets. And here actually there is another issue. Russia would like to see Turkey near to it and supports Turkish efforts in terms of humanitarian activity in this war. Although peaceful process is now somehow stopped, but there are somehow of humanitarian issue, and Turkey tries here to lead a role, and Russia supports it. It looks like that.
So among the other issues discussed between the two foreign ministers was Turkey's possible anti-terror operation in northern Syria to clear the area of YPG terrorists. How is that going to play out with Russia at the moment?
I think Russia demonstrated and mentioned that clearly. Russian side is also supportive of Turkey's efforts to stop terror attacks, and they are more willing to work together with the Turkish side on the field. But at the same time, they want to withdraw their troop presence in the northern part of the Syria, and they want to station those troops to Ukraine war. So I think a better understanding between Turkey and Russia is in the interest of both parties. But what Russia expected that Turkey's operation should be in the eastern side of the Euphrates. I think that was their expectations. In that case, there may be a broader tension between Turkey and US and Turkey and Western countries. So that was, I think, another expectation of Russia from this. But I think the operation in the eastern side of Euphrates is not out of the equation. But I think Turkish troops and Syria National Army is attacked from the Tel Rifat area and Manbij area. That's why those areas are prioritized in this case. So I think parties make sure that they understanding and they emphasize the priorities. I think
yes,
there's a better
but from what I've been
coordinate.
hearing and from what I've been reading, Russia is not happy with this possible operation on northern Syria, and on the contrary, it's strengthening its military position. Talha, would you agree? And how could a possible Turkish military operation deteriorate the current situation as claimed by both Russia and the US? Because it's kind of funny, it seems Russia and the US only agree when it comes to Turkey's anti-terror operations in northern Syria.
Here, I think that we started negotiations with the Turkey about new terms and conditions in Syria. Very much clearly that there was no such a purpose of Lavrov visit to Ankara to discuss in details with Mr. Çavuşoğlu those conditions, but looks like he submitted some message from Moscow side. And personally, I do consider this meeting between Mr. Lavrov and Mr. Çavuşoğlu as a preparation of the meeting between our two presidents. Mm-hmm. Only a personal face-to-face meeting between two presidents will put the point here in terms of how we will cooperate further in Syria. Here I a bit disagree about Russian position to Syria, because, you know, up to now Turkey elaborated 3 military operations in Syria, and they were supported by Russia. I would go further to say that the only partner, even we got many differences about Syria, the only possible partner in the Syrian ground for Turkey is Russia. Definitely not the United States, definitely not Europe.
All right, gentlemen, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.